The NBA All-Star Weekend in Dallas is finally here, and that means trade deadline's just a week away, so all the buzz starting to heat up. Hey, how are you, folks? Jason Horowitz. Glad to be with you here on CBSSports.com, and glad to have our NBA senior writer right along with us here on the website, Ken Berger, to break this down. He's in Dallas covering the event, and now that it's just a week away from the trade deadline and everybody's focusing on the NBA because of the All-Star game, the trade rumors start to heat up, the talk starts to heat up, the coverage starts to heat up, Ken. But do you think next Thursday, when the trade deadline comes, we'll say, all right, there were a lot of blockbuster deals, or it was just kind of a dud?
No, I think there is going to be some action here. I think there are a lot of teams that are motivated to do something. You know, you start with the contenders like Cleveland looking to add another piece, Boston looking to try to, you know, make sure that they protect themselves next year and can kind of maintain the successful run they've been on while also improving down the stretch. And then you have a lot of teams that are looking to get under the luxury tax. So I think there's going to be a lot of movement. I think there could be, you know, 2 or 3 big names dealt by the 18th.
Well, one of the big names that's being thrown out there right now, Ken, in proposed deals and things that you've reported here on CBSSports.com is Tracy McGrady, a guy that hasn't really played that pretty much at all this season. How likely is either that deal that's being proposed or some deal that involves McGrady?
Well, I think the three-way scenario involving McGrady going to the Knicks and the Wizards sending Caron Butler to Houston, some combination thereof, I think that has a decent chance. I think there's some hesitancy on the part of the Knicks and the Rockets to go ahead with that, and I think there's going to be continued discussions here over the weekend about how to work that out. But you know, clearly the Rockets are motivated to move McGrady. They're not desperate to do so because, you know, his $23 million contract comes off their books after the season, so they'll be in good shape cap-wise. What they want to do is try to capitalize on the fact that they've survived the injury to Yao Ming and the departure of Ron Artest, and they're in the hunt for a playoff spot. And those playoff home games are very lucrative, and for a team that has a shot, they want to try to make themselves better. Obviously, McGrady's not helping them out at all right now.
And not playing at all right now either. Ken, you know, another name that's being thrown out there and has been since the beginning of the season is Amar'e Stoudemire. Been rumored to go to every single team, maybe save for the Wizards at some point this season. It seems like he's going to go somewhere. Where do you think the most likely landing spot for Amar'e Stoudemire is?
Well, right now, where that stands is that Philadelphia is trying to decide whether they want to go through with it or not. There's been some discussions between Phoenix and Philadelphia. The Sixers are trying to determine if Amar'e is the guy that they want to commit big money to going forward, because, you know, if you trade for a guy who has an early termination clause in his contract and can become a free agent, you have to be willing to commit money to him. And, you know, the Sixers are already deep in a hole. They've given $80 million to Elton Brand, $80 million to Andre Iguodala, and they have Sam Dalembert on the books next year for $12 million. So they need to move, you know, a couple of those pieces, and if this deal would allow them to do that, they'd be intrigued. But I think there's some hesitancy on their part as to whether Amar'e is the guy they want to give big money to as their next big free agent or their next big acquisition.
A lot of other big names being thrown out there and will be this weekend. Caron Butler, as you mentioned, with the McGrady deal, Antoine Jamison, Marcus Camby, Tyrese Thomas, list goes on and on, Josh Howard. Of those guys, which ones do you think are most likely to be on different teams come next Friday?
Well, I think Tyrese Thomas is certainly going to be dealt. I think the Bulls clearly, after he had a disagreement with Vinny Del Negro recently and really has not been happy all season there, I think there's motivation on both sides to get a deal done, and there are several teams in the mix there for him. So I think there's a chance. Portland has entered the mix. I think they're really interested in getting an athletic big guy with the injuries they've had, and I think when you have motivation to do a deal on both ends, I think there's a likelihood that it'll happen. I think Dallas is going to do something. They're always active at the deadline. Mark Cuban is always willing to do something and take on money. And the interesting aspect there, and the reason Josh Howard comes to mind, is that he's a guy that they really would like to trade by the 18th because he has a team option next season. And if they don't trade him by the deadline, they can't trade him this summer unless they pick up the option. So I think there's definitely some room for movement there on that front.
Well, we'll see what happens when the deadline comes and goes next Thursday. We'll see all the buzz this weekend in Dallas, and we'll read everything you've got coming from the All-Star break and the All-Star weekend there in Dallas. And then, of course, we'll see who's on which team when the games get going again after the trade deadline next Friday. Ken Berger, thank you very much, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Jason.
All right, folks, for more on this topic, be sure to read everything that Ken's got coming right here on CBSSports.com. For Ken Berger, I'm Jason Horowitz. Take care, folks.